There have been a lot of stories in the news recently that raise questions about Canada's Liberal government's ability to appropriately screen people who want to come to Canada on any sort of visa. Now, there was a ruling that just came out a couple of weeks ago in an Ontario court that is really concerning and raises questions about the government's and as well as the judiciary's ability to deport people who are not permanent residents of Canada, but who commit crimes in this country. So this ruling, it's R versus Singh. It was released from the Ontario court on June 26, 2025 by Justice Sean Godet. And I'm going to give you the details of this ruling. Some of it it's a little graphic, it's a little sensitive, so just giving a bit of a trigger warning on that. It involves indecent exposure. So essentially, this is what happened in the ruling. On December 9th, 2023, the perpetrator, who was 22 years old and employed by Bell Canada on a temporary visa, by the way, was called to install internet service in the victim's basement apartment. After using her bathroom, he emerged with his pants unzipped and his junk exposed, keeping it visible for a long period of time. While making inappropriate comments about her appearance, asking about her dating life, and inquiring about job opportunities. The victim was alone and felt traumatized. Now, this was the ruling. The primary focus was determining an appropriate sentence for this person, balancing the offense's gravity, the victim impacts, as well as the potential immigration consequences of a non-citizen. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The sentence that was leveled was a 90-day conditional sentence to be served under house arrest. And what this translates to, for people who might not understand what it means, is that it's likely going to be easier for this person to make an argument to stay in Canada. Now, it is my opinion, as the Conservative Party of Canada's immigration shadow minister, that somebody who commits a crime like that, who is not a permanent resident of Canada, should be deported. Because what's going to happen here now is that this person is going to take up a lot of resources in terms of deportation hearings and immigration hearings and other things. And the government's focus should be this, that if somebody is here in Canada and they commit a crime like this, we shouldn't be bending over backwards to keep them in the country. You know, there are so many people who have immigrated to Canada from around the world who have contributed positively to Canada's social and economic fabric, who create jobs, who play by the rules, who are awesome law-abiding citizens, permanent residents. But if you're here on a permanent visa and on a non-permanent resident basis, on a temporary visa, and you break the law and you're convicted of that, it doesn't ring true to, you know, the ethos and the zeitgeist of Canada to keep you here for very long. And certainly it concerns me that the judiciary is thinking about this person's immigration status when issuing a sentence. They should be thinking about what? The victim in this situation, right? The victim, the woman, sounds like it was a woman, her appearance, who was alone in her residence, who was traumatized and victimized by this perpetrator who is here on a non-permanent visa. There's all sorts of questions about how Bell Canada is employing temporary residents and their employment standards as well too. Let's park that for now. But certainly, it concerns me when I see rulings that imply that the judiciary is thinking about a non-permanent resident's immigration status and their ability to stay in the country, as opposed to first and foremost thinking about the victim. That seems very off balance and wrong to me. And again, this is more and more of a problem as we've seen the Liberal government juice non-permanent resident numbers over the last several years, right? We know that the Liberal government bragged about issuing record numbers, historically incredibly high numbers of temporary student visas, for example, as well as low-skilled temporary foreign worker visas in areas where there are high levels of unemployment. And, instead of thinking about the implications that these numbers could have on things like housing, on rent affordability, the government, what they're sort of implying with this is that there are limited consequences for somebody who comes to the country, who is here at the really at the pleasure of the Canadian government on a temporary visa. What the consequences are if they break the law and are convicted of breaking the law, and that just seems really wrong to me. That this ruling is highlighting a concern for the risk of deportation. If somebody commits a crime, particularly like this, especially for a Liberal government that has purported to stand up for victims' rights, they haven't. What does that say to the victim, right? What does it say to this woman who, can you imagine being in her situation? You call for a bell technician. Lord knows that that's a pain in the butt, as it is already, right? And then this person comes and you're victimized in your house. And then you read this. Can you imagine her reading this ruling, thinking like, that there was concern for deportation? Well, this person should be deported, right? They should be deported. They are convicted of a crime. They are not a permanent resident. They should not stay in Canada. That seems like a no-brainer to me. So the Liberal government needs to start getting serious about this in very short order. We know that Mark Carney appointed a very weak minister to the immigration portfolio, as well as an extremely weak minister to the public safety portfolio. Conservatives are going to continue to keep pressure on both of these areas because of the impact that cases like this have on social cohesion in Canada. You know, this might be an uncomfortable topic for some people to talk about, but the reality is that there are millions of people who have come to Canada, who have played by the rules, who are law-abiding citizens, who are newcomers themselves and will read this and go, no, this isn't acceptable. This isn't what we stand for as a society in Canada, newcomer or not. So this is not a case that you will have heard about on the mainstream media this week. And I think it's really important to get the word out on cases like this because I do think that when we hear about this, it really erodes the fabric of Canada's pluralism. It erodes trust in government. It erodes trust in law enforcement. It diminishes victims of crime like this from reporting it to the public or reporting it to the police and seeking justice. It just has so many negative consequences. So simply put, too long didn't read it. If somebody is here on a temporary visa, they do not have permanent resident status or citizenship status in Canada. If they are committed of a crime, they should be deported. And that is what the judiciary should be thinking about. They should be thinking about the victims' rights first. This will certainly be an issue that Conservatives continue to press the government on when we get a chance to sit again in the House of Commons. We know that Mark Carney is on vacation right now. We certainly want to be working hard for the Canadian public, but here we are. In the meantime, I ask you to help me as a legislator get the word out on this. Share this video. If you have a chance, actually read the ruling yourself so that you can understand what's happening here and know that like this shouldn't be a partisan issue. If you believe in justice and you believe in, you know, preventing crime like this, if you believe in victims' rights, then you know, this to me is very concerning, and it should be concerning for anybody who hears about it too. So help me get the word out. Share this video. Working hard for you. Have a great day.